Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the Temple Within podcast. I'm your host, Jen Hubbard. And after, I don't know how long, I think like 4 months, I think it's been since I last recorded an episode. We're finally back. Whole long story. Basically, the thing I'm going to be talking about this episode is kind of like a life update, but also the things I got brought out of everything that happened to me. Let me just start off with going to boot camp. I got sent to boot camp October 27th. Was going into the Space Force, basically the same boot camp as the Air Force. And went through all 7.5 weeks. But on week 2 of training, I simply misinterpreted a single question, overthought it, looked at it too directly without looking at the intent behind it, because directly it applied to everyone, but the intent behind it didn't apply to me. And also in the moment, I felt convicted to answer the way I did, and I did, and that got me in a whole mess. And about week, the day before graduation, actually, they pulled me out of boot camp and put me in this holdover place called the Tris, and I had to stay there a additional 6 weeks to essentially get sent home. And the reason being, so preface, about early mid 2025, whenever I'm going to the Sunday night Bible study I go to, my mentor is the one who hosts it with my group of friends. And I said one Bible study, I said something in the Bible study, room goes quiet for like a few seconds, 2 seconds. And my mentor looks at me and he says, "Jaden, you are going to be a chaplain for the military." And whenever he said that, I wasn't really too sure, as I found myself to be more gifted in having one-on-one conversations with people. And I've preached before, but I really found it my thing. And it wasn't a route I was going on at all until the day I got sent to that holdover place. And they pulled me out of boot camp for that question I misinterpreted. While it still wasn't the route I was going on, God was tugging on my heart a lot more through my spirit to go that route, to go that chaplain route. And I basically the next week to decide whether I wanted to fight for my case or not, fight for the very thing the military is accusing me of that isn't true. But after a week of prayer and reading my Bible, I decided to say no to fighting my case. And a non-complicated Air Force case in a holdover place takes about 2 weeks. For Space Force, it's about 4 to 6 weeks. But because of holidays, Christmas Eve, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, it took me 6 weeks to get sent home after getting pulled out from from boot camp, essentially. And it was very tough. Boot camp as a whole, first day sucks, or like 2-3 days suck, but it really isn't that bad. But getting sent to a holdover place, while it was more lax, just because like 95% of the people there are getting sent home, so it's a little more lax there. It's a lot harder mentally, just because like I wanted to so often ask God why, why let this happen to me, like what did I do to you, God? And while that thought wanted to enter into my head, something I had to remind myself that's so often reminded in the book of Romans, is that anything and everything that God happens, or anything that God allows to happen in our lives and on this earth, is for the better of everyone. It's for His purposes. It's to see as many people in a relationship with Him as possible, and to see as many people as close to Him as possible, right? And that comes with the things that God does and allows to happen within our lives, right? And with everything that happened to me, God made it happen, right? And it was for His purposes, and to, like I said, redirect me to go that chaplain route. And something I had to really drive through myself throughout those 6 weeks I was there, and my whole life just getting essentially redirected. I was one day off of this route in my life when God decided for me to go this route a day before, complete life change, right? And something I had to remind myself was that there's absolutely purpose in suffering. right? One book I read thoroughly in my 6 weeks there was the book of Job, right? Job is this righteous man, but Satan essentially goes to God and is like, you gave all these things to Job, that's why he has such a zeal for you, right? If you were to take away those things, I bet you he would not zeal for you. And God was like, okay, you can do anything you want to him as long as you don't kill him. And he gets everything taken away from him. He doesn't even look like a human, and he's just on the brink of death. And God allows all these things to happen to him just for, through that suffering, the little bit of impurity within Job to be rooted out, and Job actually finally be convicted of that, and him bring that to God towards the end of the book of Job. And then whenever Job finally repents, and that impurity through getting tested in the fire finally gets rooted out, Job gets blessed with it tenfold, right? God places us in these fires to wither out the impurities within us and to test us, right? And one of the most beautiful things about, sorry, the sunset is like beautiful right now. One of the beautiful things about suffering is that it says in the book of Hebrews that for the joy set before him, Christ endured the cross. And who is that joy? That joy was us. Because if you think about it, yes, God absolutely did not have to die for us, but God sent his son to not only die for us, right? But to even save us, God didn't have to endure the cross the way he did. He could have just died. But Christ endured the cross, getting crucified, dying the most brutal death you could ever die, just to relay the message unto us about how much he loves us. Because while Christ didn't have to endure the pain he did to save us, yes, he did have to die, but he didn't have to endure that much pain to save us. He endured it so that he could relay unto us, hey, I'm willing to go to this amount of suffering, this amount of horrible suffering, just to say I love you. This is how much I would go out of my way for you. This is how much I would suffer for you just because I love you so much. And whenever you find this little thing out, so many verses in the Bible just start like clicking together, right? And that's the beautiful thing about suffering, is that it roots out the impurity within us. Because it says in Malachi 3:3 that God purifies us like silver. If you look at how silver is purified by getting placed in the middle of the fire, not on the edge, the middle of the fire where it's hot, most hot. And how you know it's purified is whenever you see a reflection in it. And that's exactly what God does through the trials and tribulations that we go through, is that we get placed in the middle of that fire and we say, God, I don't know what's happening, but I trust you. And through that, we are made more into the image of Christ, and we start seeing that reflection with Christ. And it also tests us to God to basically say, I'm willing to endure this much for you, God. Because while Christ endured the cross and endured such a brutal, brutal death, he endured it because of the joy set before him, because he loves us so dearly much. And through that enduring, not focusing so much on the pain in the moment, no matter how brutally much it sucked and it hurt, but look at the blessing that happened after. It's because he endured that amount of pain. We have so much more of a love for him, because Jesus relayed the message unto us. I'm willing to die for you and to show you that I love you this much. And that's the beautiful thing about suffering, is that like through the pain, not only are the impurities in you rooted out and you're made more into likeness of Christ, but so much blessing and life happens within your life. Whenever you start being so tunnel vision, focusing on what's happening in the moment and focus on who God is and his nature and character, knowing that through the suck, you're going to be blessed with tenfold. Whether that be things physically, things just relationally between you and God, to things in other people's lives, which is the most beautiful thing, right? And that's the most beautiful thing about suffering. And that's something we have to recognize, especially whenever we suffer, because we want to so often ask God, why? That's exactly what Job did. But mercy and grace be upon God, because he answered Job, corrected Job, and it's a matter of having a heart of humility and repentance at the end of it. Because if you don't, you're just locking that door for God to move through, for life change to happen, essentially. And that's the thing, the very thing that got brought us the most, or that got brought the most out of everything that happened in boot camp. Because so often I want to ask God, why? You know, and there were 3 whys. Well, first I want to say this: too often do we ask God for the whys behind the things happening within our lives, when not often enough do we remind ourselves what it can't be, and what the things that suck, the trials and tribulations that we go through, why they suck. We know what it can't be, the why behind it. And whenever we look at the cross, we know it can't be because God doesn't love us. But thanks be to God for telling me 3 whys as to why I got sent to a holdover place. Like I said earlier, was redirect myself to working to become a chaplain. I'll give you more of an update towards the end of like where I'm at now and where I'm heading. But in total, working to become a chaplain in the military. But the second why, which I basically just preached on, was to test me. You know, I will pursue God my entire life, and I won't be made perfect. And I will go through every trial and tribulation God will put me through, if it means I'm closer with Him and I'm more of a vessel and tool for God to use and speak through to be a light to other people's lives. Because there's nothing more valuable than the knowledge and wisdom and relationship that you get with God. And that's what gets built through suffering, which is the most beautiful thing. And then the third reason why was to be light to the people at that holdover place, like hundreds of people coming in and out. That 6 weeks I was at, and so many people struggling with suicide ideation, suicide attempts, drug usage, and all these other sinful ideations that people are genuinely struggle with. And I got to have so many blessed conversations with people, hours and hours and hours on end of conversating with people of who Jesus is and what He's done in my life, and clarifying the lies in people's heads that have been planted within them through people, through their own manifestation, through Satan, the world, the flesh. And so much life fruit was produced from that. And it's something I'm dearly grateful for God to have put me something through that, knowing I would have pushed through that. And that's something I'm very much deeply going to be grateful for in the fruit produced not only in my life but in other people's lives. And one verse that has like hit me to the core, it's been the very passion behind everything that I think, say, and do, but I never directly found the verse for it. And while in that holdover place, I finally found it. It's Job 22:29-30. And preface to that verse is God is essentially saying, this will all happen, or I don't know if it's God, I can't remember, but it's essentially saying this all happens and will happen whenever you follow God. And verses 29-30 says, whenever you follow God and you are pursuing God and are living righteously, wholeheartedly for God, you can just say, help them to that person, and that person will be helped. And at the very root of everything I do, I just want to help people. And that verse hit me to the core, keeping me accountable that, like, in some way, shape, or form, I'm affecting someone else's relationship with God. If I can't be the vessel and tool God speaks through, if I can't be the vessel and tool God speaks through for that person, how is that person going to receive the word that they need, right? And while I never want to be the why behind someone growing with Christ and giving their lives to Christ, I never want to be the reason why someone can't or didn't grow with Christ, that didn't get saved and give their lives to Christ, essentially. I never want to be the reason not for that. Now, aside from all that, dude, this guy's beautiful. Oh my gosh. It's like dark blue, there's like orange, dark orange, light orange, then like it's like orange and then sky blue and then like a little bit of purple. I love sunsets. God, so cool. And then I know like 1,000,000% the lighting is like fading because this is like sunset, but at least with right now, went to my Air Force recruiter and like life update of like where I'm at now and then where I'm heading. Life update. talked to my Air Force recruiter. They were like, you gotta wait 3 years to reenlist. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I talked with a good buddy of mine, who was my small group leader my junior senior year at the youth services I went to after the sermon was preached. He's a Army recruiter, and he was like, yeah, we can get you reenlisted, start the reenlistment process in 3 months, and we can start on the waiver process for that question you misinterpreted. I'm like, cool. And then shortly after, I injured my hip. I've never been prone to injury. This is like the worst injury I've ever had. I've never broken, torn, dislocated, fractured anything at all. Injured my hip, squatting essentially, and I couldn't sleep for like a week and a half. It was terrible. I couldn't walk really at all. I couldn't pick up my leg at all. The pain was unbearable. I could not sleep at night. After the week and a half went by, finally went to the doctor because I didn't want to get it medically documented for the military to be all about me about it, but I needed some medication. Got some medication for it, and yesterday made it the like 3rd or 4th week since the injury. I believe 4th week. I don't know. I'm doing a lot better. I'm walking normally now. I can finally pick up my leg. I still can't really squat down or anything. This is actually first day, Sunday. I've actually been able to tie my shoe. I can't reach down far enough to like put on my sock or anything, but it's progress, you know. And it's likely not. I thought it was a partially torn hip flexor. It's actually not. It was just a heavy strain on my right hip flexor, or the hip flexor on my right leg, the main muscle, and then a deep hip stabilizing muscle. So it's not a partially torn hip flexor, which is good. But seeing an orthopedic specialist soon. Likely gonna have to do physical therapy, especially for the military, because they're gonna be like, you want to make sure this thing is clear and good. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm just glad I'm able to actually be pain-free, walking a lot better, specifically pain-free, and able to move around a lot better and quicker, which is good. Because I had to take such tiny steps and limp my whole way everywhere. It is horrible, but that's where we're at now. Serving as much as possible. 8th graders Wednesday nights, 3rd graders Sundays. Taking advantage of everything I can, whether I'm at home, at work, at church, the community around me. Just trying to grow, make the most out of what I'm given, and have my foot on the gas pedal for God. I'm going to try and do episodes every week. Sunday, I'm at least going to record them. Maybe post them Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I don't know. And get back into this because I love talking about God. I love helping people, and I love glorifying God through everything that I think, say, and do. This is Tumble Within Podcast, and I will see you guys next time. Love y'all.